Welcome everybody to Red's Ramblings. Today, very special guest, at least for me, Mark Walter of Wolters World, big guy on YouTube. For those who watch my show, I do a lot of cultural episodes where I reach out to people from different countries. And considering I don't have a background in history or anything like that, I go through and try and look up things on these specific countries so I don't sound like an idiot every time I speak to people. Walter's one of those channels on YouTube that I frequent a lot in trying to, again, not sound that dumb when I speak to these people. So first off, thank you very much for the content that you got and that you put out. It's very family friendly. It's very easy to understand. And you, again, you've helped my channel a lot in just not allowing me to sound so stupid sometimes.
I'm glad I can help out, Ray.
So thank you again for that, Mark, and go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit more.
Sure. Hi, I'm Mark Wolters. I run the Wolters World Travel and Culture channel on YouTube. We like to focus on helping people travel better. So we focus on honest travel advice, what you do and don't do when you go to different countries, different cultures. Try to get you prepared with some of the fun culture shocks you might hit or have, so you're not like, what's going on? So you're more kind of prepared. So instead of some little hiccup making your vacation bad, it becomes an exciting thing. So we do what we can to help people travel better.
Yeah, and again, I've learned a lot from it, especially cultural misunderstandings and misrepresentations. You definitely hit on that quite often, because from the States, we learn certain aspects of cultures, or we don't even hit on certain cultures. But you go in there and like, hey, you might have heard this, but it's actually that. You have a lot of stuff like that. And the do's and don'ts are definitely a thing, because what might be okay here in the States or in other countries is not necessarily okay in other countries.
Exactly.
So I want to ask, how did you get started in this? Because you do like what I would love to do, but you're already doing it, obviously. How does one get started in traveling? Because you're a professor as well, right?
Yeah, I'm a professor of marketing in my day job, and then my side hustle, as you like to say, or actually my very expensive hobby is traveling. So I've actually, since I was young, I studied abroad twice when I was in high school, twice when I was doing my undergraduate. I did my master's abroad, my PhD abroad. I've worked abroad, lived abroad for 12 years, basically straight. And it's always been something I've really loved. Mm-hmm. And that kind of wanting to travel was great. I remember when I was younger, people were like, oh, you should write this stuff down. I'm like, I don't want to write it down. No one want to listen to that or watch it. So I never did. So for 20 years, I didn't do anything. Yeah. 15 years. And then I remember I was in the Veneto region of Italy, and I got this guidebook. And I got off the airport in Venice. I'm like, well, I'm going to be here for a few weeks. I might as well pick up a guidebook and see what to do. So I get a guidebook, and first city, first thing it mentions, the town sounded fantastic. I'm like, wow, sounds really good. I've never heard of this town. I got to go there. And so I go see my Italian buddies, and I show them this is where I'm going to go tomorrow, because they're working, and I was on vacation. It's like, oh man, that sounds great. We've never been there. It should tell you something when people that live 45 minutes from a place have never been there. And right. I just multiple friends. And so I ended up going there, and the palace was closed. They're getting remodeled, getting done up. The museums didn't really have anything. There wasn't even really good of food. It was just a total letdown. And I got really upset, because I thought, man, this guidebook basically lied to people. It lied to people because it told them the good stuff, not the bad stuff. And I thought of my friends, because I was doing my PhD at the time, and so I was in my late 20s, and I was thinking my buddies who had 10 days of vacation, maybe 20, maybe you can go for 2 weeks, but you figure when you're in your 20s, you got 2 or 3 weddings you got to go to a year, right? Yeah. So there's a couple days vacation days gone there, and then I got to go see mom and dad for the holidays. So you're I got 1 week I can go someplace. And I'm like, okay, a Friday to Sunday trip, Friday through the week to the next Sunday, that's 10 days. And this guidebook gave this, overinflated description that made me go there. I'm thinking of my buddies, they lost 10% of maybe their one time in their life to go to Europe. A day was wasted because somebody got some free food somewhere, got a free place to stay, or they got paid to say something nice. And I'm like, that's not right. And
Right.
so from that moment on, I said, no, I'm gonna make videos on helping people travel, but be honest with it, tell the good and the bad. And that's why we started off with these 5 Love and Hates videos, and from there went
Yes.
to culture shocks and don'ts, and now we've got like little, like small little mistakes you might have when you go places. So that's what kind of drove the more travel kind of stuff. Making the videos, I'd been making videos for my students when I lived in Portugal, because I was teaching in English and not everyone was a native speaker. So I
Right.
wanted the students learn the material. So I would do like summary videos for the topics so that if they want to study, they could watch that, understand how stuff works. And then my fiance at the time was my wife now. She was coming to move to Portugal, so I wanted to get her ready to go there. So I made like language videos for her and culture videos. So there's a lot of things that went into it, but really it was just being so disappointed in
Mhm.
that guidebook, and then reading blogs and other guidebooks, you kind of see where they're kind of, it's the Prague of the East, the Prague of the West, the Prague of the
Yeah.
South, like, or like the new Prague or the Paris of the East. I'm like, there's one Paris, there's one Prague. Okay, like
Right.
stop with this stuff. Okay, so that kind of drove me into this.
Yeah, I've come across that in trying to find other information of countries. When you look up like a lot of the top 10 or top 100 channels, it'll be funny, and I'm not gonna call any of those channels out because hell, they're doing their job. But you get exactly, you gotta do what you gotta do. But it's funny, some of them you come across and it's like top 10 or top 100, whatever, of so and so country, and then the comments like, I'm from here, and no, like that's not a thing. And it's like, so I can't use that because the people on the grounds, say no, which is sort of what you ran into there. And so yeah, it's great that you are one of the ones that I've come across that boots on the ground. You're there. You're not just speaking from a closet on stuff that you Googled. You're there on the ground, talking to the people, walking through the streets and everything. So that I want to ask, the years you've been doing this, I'm assuming you know more than one language.
Yeah, no, as I say, I would feel comfortable teaching it. I mean, give me some time to practice again, but like,
Right.
I could teach obviously in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and German, and then
Mhm.
I can have like, I would say like intermediate Italian, and I could be a good tourist in French. so, so those things there. But I mean, I've lived a lot of places over the years, and it's funny when people say if you don't use a language, you lose it. It's really true, because when I lived in Lithuania, I actually ended up teaching in Lithuanian. But right now, I can survive at the bar and the restaurant and buying some
Right.
train tickets. About all I can do, or bus tickets, I should say, is about all I can do in Lithuanian. Maybe, and it's funny how they kind of disappear when you don't use them. So
Yeah, I know, because I would hope to the countries I've spoken to 30 plus countries now at this point.
cool.
And oh dude, it's been amazing. I mean, you know when you go to a new
Yeah,
country, it's like, yeah,
yeah,
and I would love to get to that point, hopefully, when the world's not in shambles like it is basically, to be able
yeah.
to travel and do that. And I feel like, to be respectful to the culture and the people, I should pick up at least a few phrases to, like you said, be able to hold sort of a conversation, because I only know English. That's all I know. I know a few words in Spanish, a few words in German, but to hold a conversation in either, no, not at all.
Yeah, and what's amazing, even if you just know, like I used to do these videos, like 10 words you should know in a language, but like no one ever watched them, so I stopped making them. But it was always like, seriously, you don't know how much it means to people just know how to say thank you in their language.
Yes.
And I mean, we can all say, gracias and stuff like that, but if you're like some random country, like Lithuania, you say achu, they're like, oh, Lithuanian, like, no, dude, I only know the word achu, which is thank you.
Right.
They're so happy. I mean, I can't tell you times I've been places, and I'll just learn like, please, thank you, yes, no, where is the bathroom? And you're like, I want, Yahoo Eta, I want that, and they're like, oh my God, like drinks free,
Yes.
like, trying, and those are things like you got to go out of your comfort zone when you go to these countries, because just trying language, even if you butcher it, they're just so happy you tried. There's a lot of tourists that don't try and they get mad and mean, like, oh, how dare you not speak English or whatever. You're like, dude, like you're asking some 80-year-old, babushka, like she grew up at a different time, man. Like there was that English going around. And so knowing some words really goes a long way. But you're right, like having the conversation, that changes everything. Like for me, I always, people ask me like, where's your favorite place to go in certain places, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I love going to Brazil. It's my favorite place to go to if
Yes.
you speak Portuguese. It's a great place to visit if you don't speak, but I love it if you speak Portuguese because the Brazilians are so much fun. But you got to speak Portuguese to really get everything out of it. I mean, there's been a number of times we've been in Italy, and I'll just like strike up a conversation with people next to us, and they're like, "Oh, you're a foreigner that speaks decent Italian," and so we'll chat for a while, and they'll invite us to their house, and we'll go do stuff. And I remember this one time, there's a restaurant we go to in Rome, and we're just sitting there, and my kids were a lot younger then, and the 9-year-old was like a baby. We're talking like baby, like 7, 8 weeks old. Okay.
Right.
So we're sitting there chatting. They're like, why are you here with the baby? I'm like, oh, well, we were living in Portugal. We just came over and we're speaking Italian. The people are like, that's so wonderful. Turns out they were the owner of the restaurant, and they're like, come back tomorrow. Like, they hooked us up with everything. We got like a whole back room. They're like, don't worry. And they're like, you come back tomorrow. The wife, the grandma, whatever it was, she's like, I'll take care of the baby the whole time, so you two can actually have a meal, and we'll entertain because my oldest was like 4. Yeah, he was 4 at the time. So like, we'll take care of them, and you guys can have dinner. I'm like, oh, thanks. So that was really
just because you were able to strike up a simple conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Because you never know. I mean, it's crazy. My mom, and it's not just like young people. My mom, I remember we were in Norway together, and it was around St. Patrick's Day years ago, and we go into a store, and I knew like thank you and please, and I was like, my mom wants to know, like that was it,
Yeah.
And this lady's like, she just looks at it, she goes, you're in Norway. We all speak English. What do you need? And so we ended up chatting with her. She invited us to our house. We went out for like St. Patrick's Day to an Irish pub with her. She's like, no, you need to go here. I met people in the street, so I went out with them. But my mom, she went and hung out with all these Norwegian like adults for, a couple nights. So it was just great, just like meeting people. It's such a great thing, but just trying. Like that appreciation you show of someone's culture by trying to speak the language, or, I mean, like I said, just 1 word, 2 words makes a big difference.
Yeah, because I know when I look into countries and I'll find something that I like whether it's a landmark or a type of food, piece of architecture, something like that. A lot of times, it's in the native tongue. So I'm like, okay, first off, when I do it, if I can't find a verbal, a site that has it verbally spelled out or said, I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna attempt this, but I'm probably gonna butcher it. My apologies. But when you do get it, or you even do get it close to like, oh, you were like one of the first, or good job, something like that. And it's just for, like you said, attempting to at least try to understand the language and the culture. For a lot of them, that's like key. That's number one.
Yeah, and especially I find, especially if you go to a country or a city that's not really popular visiting, like when I would go to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, like, like no one goes there. Like, it's very few. So when you go and you speak a few of the words, they're like, wait a minute, and they're like so happy, but so proud at the same time that someone did that. Like when you go to Greece, like Greece knows no one speaks Greek except the ancient Greeks and us. And so you'll Evharisto, which is like thank you, and they're like, hey, and so like they're so pumped, like, here, you could have a little more Rocky, a little more Uzo for you, sir.
Yeah.
So that's funny. My dad learned the word Evharisto, and we actually had to stop the people from bringing him Uzo. We were in Athens, and it was like our last night. I was living in Portugal at the time, and my parents came. We like met in Greece and did like a 2-week thing together. And it's like our last day together. We're like, oh, we'll eat at one of the squares and do this. And it's the end, and the guy brings out the Uzo. My dad, who's like, the guy grew up. He's born in the 40s. Never learned. Tried to learn like Spanish when he was in his 50s. Like had every book on tape back in the day. When he would try. Bless his heart. But he never quite got it. And he actually got close to Evharisto. And the guy was like, oh, great. So he just pours it again. So my dad's like, oh, this is good. Evharisto. And the guy keeps going like. And eventually, like, dude, you got to cut it off. You got to cut it. Like,
stop.
He's got to live tomorrow. But the guy was just so happy that this old American guy was like, using his 1 word of Greek. It's just really nice. And that's one thing. It really shows that we're all kind of the same. Like we all want to communicate with each other. And if we find some kind of connection, it really like perks people up.
Yeah, I've probably the biggest thing I've learned since I've been doing my show since about March. And I've been doing the cultural episodes, say June or July is when I started that. And one of the biggest things I've learned, and you kind of touched on it, and I'm sure you can go into more detail from your experiences, that like, so I'm born and raised in the South here in the States. I live in South Carolina, but I've spoken with people literally halfway around the world, Philippines, you know, Indonesia, whatever, and never spoken to them beforehand, you know, all this type of stuff. I reached out like, hey, do you want to talk? And they said yes. And in the end of a lot of these conversations, really all of these conversations with these people, you realize whether, you know, you grew up rich or poor, whatever race, religion, anything, you still come to realize that, yo, he or she's pretty much just like me.
Exactly.
Different background, different upbringing, different, all this doesn't matter. Old or younger than me doesn't matter. Like, you still find that commonality between everybody. And it's something that, again, for me, not traveling, never being outside the country, I watch people in other countries. I love history and everything. So I had an idea, but I always figured, well, they can't be that similar. But once you speak to them, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everyone's so similar.
I know, and that's just it. People ask me who are the best people around when you travel. I'm like, there's great people everywhere. You know what? There's jerks everywhere you go to. But
for sure.
But that's just it. Like when you travel, you really start to see. It's like, look, we're all kind of similar. We all kind of going through the same. We're all living the same, different version, but it's the same kind of life we're going through. And no matter where you go in the world, everybody hates the cable company. You know, like some things are just international. Like, oh, I got to pay the gas bill. You're like, oh yeah, you know. And so you have these kind of commonalities. That's one thing. If we want to look for silver linings for the whole pandemic, like one of the things I see that stops people from talking to people when they travel is they're like, what do we talk about? Like, I feel weird asking about food or what I should do in their country or their city or whatever. I'm like, well, now everyone in the entire world has we have one common thing. We can talk about what did you do during the pandemic? You know, if you have, because people will make friends. If they have kids, you go to the park, you're going to make friends with other parents because, oh, we both have this kid that's snotting all over themselves and going to fall down. We can talk about that. You have that. And this gives everybody some kind of common ground that we can talk about it. That's why they would say, oh, you can always talk about the weather. You know, it's like, yeah, we all deal with the weather. So but then you start to realize when you travel, man, we all are going through this same life thing. We all got kids. We all got bills. We all want to see the world and meet new people and talk and be together. And it really makes you go, you know what? We can all get along. We can all get along because in the end, we're all pretty much the same.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've tried to underline on each of my videos, especially with the way here in the States and just worldwide, the way the past year have been. It's been a big divide for various reasons. Yeah. But in speaking with people, we're all human beings, and some might say that's cliche to say, but when you speak, it's true. It's true, and it's something I kind of sort of had a feeling, but I've really come to understand it at a deeper level. Now we're speaking with all these people from everywhere, and it's one of the most amazing takeaways. I mean, again, I have friends in Brazil now. I have friends in the Philippines, Japan, Russia, like everywhere that I didn't have a year ago, that I never would have imagined a year ago.
If you wouldn't have had the pandemic, you wouldn't have. You know, that's one of the things.
Yeah,
you're like,
probably.
Like since we've done some travel around the U.S., but I wouldn't have done anywhere near as much travel around the U.S. if it wasn't for the pandemic and staying home. And then we've got to meet more people online. So like, you know, there's people that I'm like excited, like, oh, we're going to go drive through Indiana, you know, in a couple months. I'm like, we're going to see Liz and Derek because we got to see them. You know, it's like we've made these new friends. And now you're like, oh, I can't wait to see them and develop our friendship even more.
Yes, 100% agree there. Because I know every time when I get done with the country and I'm like, one day I hope to go, and they're like, well, you better come to my house so I can show you around. Like, yes. Of course, I know you there. So yes, I'm going to feel more comfortable there, and you can show me around, all that kind of good stuff. Definitely a huge highlight of the past year that I've had is in doing this. And again, behind the scenes before, you know, I reached out to you, you were a big part of that. So again, I know we're like halfway. Thank you again for everything that you do. 'Cause it's been
I'm
great.
glad I can help out. I'm glad I can be here.
Oh, that definitely means a lot. I want to ask, since obviously we have the pandemic, and yeah, you've been doing more of a state traveling than going state to state here in the country. When do you have an idea of when you'll be able, and if like go back abroad, and if so, what's the first country you're planning?
Well, it's funny. People asked me this question since like March.
I'm
And
sure.
it was funny, at the time, it was like, well, whatever next plane ticket I have that's available, because everything keeps getting canceled. And it got to the point we actually had no more plane tickets. So like right now, the one thing we have is stuff based in the US for travel. But there was a wedding. I was supposed to be the best man. Talk about meeting random people while traveling. An
Really?
Italian guy I met, an Italian couple actually I met in Brazil 15 years ago. We became best friends. He's actually the guy I went to stay with when I had that. He's like, oh, that town sounds great in Italy.
Yes, yes.
Same guy. He's getting married. They've been together for 20 years. She finally said, okay, we've been together for 20 years. 2020 and June 20th is our anniversary. So it's a sign that we should get married. So they're like, oh, I'm like, no, we have to go. Like, so we're going, gets canceled. They can't have the wedding. So now they're scheduled again for this coming June. And I don't know if it's gonna. I mean, I want to go, but I don't be able to go. But I know that will probably be the first one, because if we can go this summer, it'll be go to the wedding. So
For sure.
I have. But honestly, right now, it's funny. Like when we plan out our travels, I kind of have, like, the next like 2 or 3 years, I have a rough idea of what we're gonna do, like kind of penciled out.
Okay.
So like 2020 was, we're going to go to a Caribbean thing for spring break, because then we can do like adventure stuff with the kids and they like that. And we don't have a big time difference. So when we come back, the kids are okay for school. And then I was like, okay, then the summer I usually teach in Europe. So then they come after school gets out, and then we're going to do, we'll do the wedding in Italy. Then we're going to go to Israel, go down to Kenya, see Greece. Like we had that kind. And then it was like in the fall, we're going to do Ireland. And then, it was kind of like, and then it was like, and I knew that we were going to do Australia and New Zealand for Christmas. So it's like, that year was kind of planned out, but then this year was going to be India and Southeast Asia, and then everything kind of collapsed and all that stuff. So we kind of had everything stacked like a deck, house of cards, and then it all just kind of collapsed down. So now I just had this deck of places. So it's kind of like, well, where can we go? Where's it safe to go? Where are we allowed to go?
Yes.
And so there's that, because we travel with our kids, and we have to wait for get our vaccine, and then when the kids can get it, and what are the restrictions?
Yep.
So yeah, I'm hoping, like, I'll have days and I'm really hopeful, and I'll plan for trips like in the end of summer and in the fall.
Right.
Next year. Then other days I'm like, forget it. We're not going anywhere. We're staying in the U.S. this year. So, which is fine, because there's a lot of great places in the U.S. Like last year I made like I kind of put together like 13 different U.S. based road trips from where we live in Illinois. I'm like, these are all cool. I want to do all of them. So we got 3 of them done last year. We're doing another one here next month. But then there's like the big ones that are like, you go huge thing up to Glacier. We're going all the way to the West Coast. That's like, well, if Italy doesn't happen, we're going all the way out to Oregon, and we're going to Montana for Glacier. Like, you're kind of like, okay, we're gonna get all this stuff, and So yeah, I'll be happy to go anywhere, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that travel itch has got to be burning, I'm sure.
Oh, it is. I mean, we have been lucky because our kids, they've been online, like their school district went online.
Yeah.
So we went for a month up the Mountain West in September. We went down to Mississippi and Texas and Arkansas for a month in November. So we got to at least do that, because our kids are bouncing off the walls now. So they get them out. They're like, oh, road trip. Yeah. Like my 14-year-old is excited to go to grandma's house again, because he's like, we get out of the house. I mean, like 14-year-olds aren't really hyped up to go make cookies. Like, so that he was happy. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, I know last year, me and my wife, we had planned, we planned to get married in North Carolina. I love North Carolina. My family's from North Carolina. So the plan, we had everything planned out, right? Rooms were booked, everything was paid for, and
sure.
And
no
then,
refunds.
Oh no! Thankfully, we were able to. Yeah.
I know people that. I lost a lot of money. I know a lot of people lost a lot of money on stuff they couldn't get anything back.
Oh, I'm sure, definitely. Yeah, we were definitely one of the lucky ones there. Uh, and we had planned that, and it was supposed to be a waterfall, Tom's Creek, in front of a waterfall. And we scoped it out in March prior. Gorgeous setting. I love the mountains, 100%, all that.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to have all that planned out, and wedding in front of a waterfall. I mean, come on.
You can't.
It's hard
that's
right?
like no, that's the one you show the pictures. People are like, oh, that's a staged wedding. That's not real.
Oh man,
like,
yeah. And we went and scoped it out beforehand, and it was picture perfect. Then everything came crashing down. Deck of cards, just boom, came crashing down. But thankfully, we were still able to legally get married. Weren't able to do it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Hey, be careful you don't eat too much, because I can't wear my ring anymore because I got too fat. You're skinny, so
So we were able to make it work, and we're planning still on renewing them up there, basically. That way we can still see a waterfall, have those gorgeous pictures, and just be there again. Because I love North Carolina air. The mountain air is
awesome.
it's different. It's different than regular air. It's like, you know how people say Sprite, McDonald's Sprite has an extra crisp?
Yeah.
That's North Carolina mountain air for me.
Yeah, that's one thing. So we used to go. We live in Illinois. My wife was living in Georgia, and so we would always, when we come back from our visits, we'd always drive down and go see. So there's two. We could either go down through Nashville and Atlanta, or she has friends live in Cary, North Carolina. So we would go through Cary and then through Asheville going out. So we'd always stop all the stuff around there, and it was like, dude, it's just. I mean, I understand why North Carolina is. Everyone loves that place. It is just gorgeous.
Yeah. So hopefully that's.
They're like, oh, I don't have that air here though.
Oh, it's total. Yeah, definitely don't at all. And we were planning, and it's still the plan for our honeymoon to be in Scotland, because I'm 40. Because I'm 40% Scottish. In case you couldn't tell, right?
I don't judge. Hey.
Well, yeah, a lot of people.
So when I had my goatee out about this long, it turned all red. So
really,
I have some Scottish in me. Actually, my mom and I, not 2020 but 2019, we went to the Shetland Islands, and we like found the graves and all the stuff, and it's funny because like there was Norwegian were there for a long time, and so my mom did that 23andMe thing. And they're like, oh yeah, you got 3% Norwegian. They're like, boom, there's where it's from.
Yeah, so I did the ancestry. Yeah, I did that, and I'm 40% Scottish, along with some other stuff as well. So
some other nowhere near as cool as Scottish stuff.
Yeah, some other stuff I don't really care for, or not like care about per se. Definitely not as much as Scottish.
Yeah.
And my wife's got a fair amount of Scottish in her too, so it's
cool.
always been a dream to go there. And thankfully, I have two friends now that I've spoken to that live up there, so I know where I can go. Shout out to you, Sophina and Birgit. I'm coming to see you at some point.
Yeah, no, if you can go, like, that's one thing I tell you is like, look, if you're not sure where to go when you're going to travel, find where your family's from and go there, because it really does mean a lot. Like, I know the first time I went to Germany, like a lot of my ancestry, we have Scottish. On my dad's side, it's mostly German. And so like going to eat at grandma's house and great grandma's and stuff. And I went to Germany the first time, and I'm like, it's like I'm eating my grandma's food every meal. And but like I was like 18, 19 at the time. I didn't make the connection. And later on, I'm like, ding, grandma's noodles were Spätzle, and her sauerkraut was sauerkraut. Now it's like, you're like mine just
all
like
coming together.
God, this is what it's from. And then you start talking to your family, and they're like, oh, my dad's like, oh yeah, my grandma, she only spoke German. And I'm like, wait, did anyone else speak German? No, just her. So that leads to a whole other conversation.
Oh yeah. So
yeah, dude, awesome. You guys can go there. I mean, and the thing is, Scotland is like, you can be alone. Wait, it's a honeymoon, yeah. So you can be alone. You can go on hikes together. But when you do decide to go, man, make sure you're booking. If you're going to go in the summer, make sure you book way early, because the places up there do book out in the summer.
Yes.
Fairly far in advance. So.
Yeah. We had looked. We haven't said anything yet, because again, don't know if we can go anywhere or anything like that.
Yeah, because
I keep up with them because I think they're still on like level 5, if I recall last time I spoke with them. So.
We had friends that had gone up there, and they went they were gone. They went September, October, November, because they went like for 3. So they did the 2-week quarantine, and then they went through
Yeah.
England, and they were in Scotland, and then the new lockdowns came, so they had to come back down and to get out to fly. To fly out, but they couldn't go to Wales or anything. But
Yeah.
they had a great time up there. I mean, we've always had a great time. We go to Scotland. I'm always like, dude, go. It's
Right. It's,
and the people,
oh, yeah.
just like everywhere, the people are super friendly, and they're super friendly in Scotland.
Oh no, yeah, I've heard plenty of stories about that. Like, I think it was Birgit when she and her son moved from Estonia, actually, and they car broke down in front of a house, and strangers, they had no idea, and the lady of the house kept coming out, and she had called their equivalent of AAA to come get them, and the lady kept coming out because I guess tow truck service was late or whatever. And they said they were there for like 3-4 hours, and the lady still at the house, do you want us to help you? You want to come inside, all this kind of stuff. And finally, after just waiting for so long, she like took her up on her offer and went inside, probably got a meal or two, I'm sure. But yeah, extremely nice. Again, just if you were to Google Scotland, just landscapes and all that, is breathtaking. It's absolutely breathtaking. And one of the things I looked into before getting on with you is your wife, Jocelyn. She has her own show, simply Jocelyn. And it seemed, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't watched hers as well at all compared to yours. Definitely more geared towards food.
Yes.
And she has a history of, or background in like history and architecture and stuff like that, correct?
Yep. Yeah, her channel. So Jocelyn was trying to figure out how she could have her own kind of thing, and so we came up with her Simply Jocelyn channel, because she's a fantastic cook. I mean, I honestly, since we've got married, I've put on 100 pounds because she's that. Not because we eat out, it's because she's that good of a cook, and like it's too good to say no.
Right.
So,
oh yeah.
She's good at that. So like, there was that, and then I started to see about a year and a half ago, our food videos on Wolters World, they just never got watched. Like don'ts, shocks, love and hates, they would get shown to people, but the food videos would never get shown. So it was like no one was watching them. So I'm like, well, there's not really a point for me to put those videos out if no one's going to watch them. But people watch them, like them. But I'm like, what do we do? And so Jocelyn was making her food stuff. Like we started making her cooking channel. And she's like, well, we can do other things. She's like, I can make the food videos on my channel. So she started the channel this summer, she started making like what to eat when you're in Nebraska, what to eat when you're in Montana, what to eat, in South Dakota. So she's now taken over the food thing from her perspective, and we're putting it all on there. So I still have like 15, like what to eat in Italy, what to eat in France.
Yeah.
So I have these. I'm like, should I just put them all? Though it's me saying, hey, this is Mark from Heavy Fellow Travelers. Mark from Wolters World. Like, do I put that on her channel or mine? So I'm trying to decide what to do with that. But that channel is more food based, and then she's looking at different things because her background's in historic preservation.
Yes.
So we were in Natchez, Mississippi in November, and she was filming some stuff there. She's like, this city's got so much historic buildings. This could be something. So we're just trying to figure out, what she wants to do with it and see what works, what doesn't work. But yeah, she's doing good. She's like, hey, it's funny because she'll be like, because I'm like, I'm going to film this tomorrow. I'm going to film this next week. She'll like knock on my door. Hey, I want to make this dish for dinner tonight. So we're going to film it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Right.
So like stuff up and I'll edit it together. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's good when you are able to create something out of your passion. Obviously your passion is cooking, historical preservation, which I love, because a big thing of an additional reason of why I've started doing the culturals, because I love ancient history.
Yeah.
And love looking at old stuff, ruins, temples, caves, all that kind of stuff. Which brings me to my next thing of one of the biggest things I've come across that blew my culture shock, probably my biggest culture shock I've come to learn in doing these episodes of mine. And I'm sure you have some awesome details that I would love to hear from you about this. India. Because growing up here in the States, I didn't learn a lot about India, right? I think probably like the Indian, what was it? The trading company that they had back then, but it was, but it was really just named after India. It was, because British owned it and all that kind of stuff. And I've done 4 episodes now with people from India, from different parts, because India is so huge.
Yeah, and people, and people don't realize like South India, North India. I mean, it is.
They're not the same.
Totally different. Yeah, like I've had a number of Indian students over the years and become good friends, and there is like, Mark, when you come, because again, this was supposed to be India year, and he's like, when you come, and we're like, no, we're bringing the family, we're all coming, like, okay. So I got my buddy Dwee, he's like, all right, so what we're going to do, like, he's got it all planned out, it's funny, it's like, and then there's another friend's like, no, we're going to go to Goa because I know you were in Portugal, so you got to go to Goa to see what it's, the Portuguese influence was really like. And the people are like, you got to come. And so we're wanting to go. But you're right, like, we don't learn hardly anything. Like, we learned the partition when, India and Pakistan split, and Bangladesh. But otherwise, like, Gandhi, but we don't really learn very much. And I think that's one thing I think is nice, is that, with podcasts, with YouTube channels, now more of this history can get out. So if you're interested, you can go learn it. Like, Crash Course History, the guys from the Vlog Brothers guys, the Hank and Tom Green. Tom Green has his Crash Course, so it's like you can learn anything. It's a Crash Course version of it. So they make it, it's all the infographics, kind of fun, nation. But it's like, oh, you can learn about Indian history. You can learn about world history. You can learn about physics or whatever. Like, now when you find your passion, you can so much learn more. But you and me, like, if we wanted to learn 10 years ago, we were in school or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to learn more? Yeah, go, get the
Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll have like this much on India. The capital is New Delhi, and there is Calcutta, and then there is like, what?
Population of so-and-so billion or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
that's what I like about like podcasts like yours and other ones, is like you give that perspective so people can like, wait, I'm not just learning the facts, I'm actually learning about people from there. So that's really cool. Yeah,
because if you were to watch when I started my culturals compared to how they are now, they've changed. Because I started as that question, like, I heard about this, can you tell me about that? Can you tell me about like festivals? India has a whole bunch of religious festivals and everything like that. So it was like a point to point, blah blah blah. And I remember I edited it. I don't remember what episode, but I edited it. And I was like, it sounds so robotic. It was just question, answer. And I was like, I'm not happy with the way this is. So I switched it up, and I figured, well, I have this individual who's just a regular everyday person. Instead of going, hey, do you know about this? Or what can you tell me about that? I was like, just tell me your view, how you see where you stay, where you live, your culture. And it's now more towards that everyday man's opinion. So again, like, I've spoken with 4 to 5 people from India, and they're from different parts. And like you said, my episode with an individual from Karnataka is nothing like my individual from other areas, right? Totally night and day. But one of the things that when I spoke of culture shock, is the architecture, the temples, the buildings, the ruins, and everything. Whoa. Like, growing up here in America, you learn about Roman architecture, Greek architecture, all those, pristine white marble buildings and all that. But man, and they look great. They're gorgeous. But for me, in my opinion, when you put Greek and Roman architecture and ruins to Indian temples and the intricate detail,
whole different ballgame.
It's insane. And I remember my first episode there's an artist over in India, Didiya Singh, who does some phenomenal. He actually did this and sent this to me.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, it's amazing. It's very chaotic. He is, his ideas and everything. You can see it's very all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, where was this when I was in school? Where was all this? I'm like, I feel like I'm a child again in school, because I'm like learning so much. I'm like, ooh, look at this temple, and I'm not even gonna definitely right now attempt to pronounce them. So I'm definitely not that good.
No, and that's just it. It's like once you start doing the research, it like drives you want to learn more.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things when I look at guidebooks, I always start by reading the history of the country. Like that's why I like the Lonely Planet books, because one, they have really good maps, but two, they have a whole history of the country beforehand. Because once you read through that, you get a better understanding of the people. You know, it's like if you don't know, it's like, why is everything de Gaulle Street here in France? Well, President de Gaulle, the Second World War, you know, like, but I mean, it's a simple example, but you start to understand better, like, oh, now I understand. And then once you start traveling more and you learn about more cultures, you see how their history influences where they are today and why you do certain things, you don't do certain things, or you eat certain ways, you don't eat certain ways. And what's for me, it's just so cool to learn about the culture side of it and the history and all those things. It just wants you to learn more and more and more. And therefore, when you learn, like go to other countries, like, okay, what do you guys do about this? How do they celebrate that? You know, it gets you excited about it.
Oh yeah, I've come out of an interview so many times, and I've gone down to my wife. I was like, that was so much fun.
That's awesome.
That was. I can't wait. Like I can't wait to get that one out and edit so I can share it with everybody else, because I've learned more in the last year about the world, just really in general, than I have probably 5 years, because I've been out of school for like almost a decade now. So the amount of knowledge I've been able to soak in, and again, the friendships I've made, the people I've spoken to, it's one of the coolest, most amazing things. So I want to,
awesome.
Oh man, and again, for like the fourth time now, a big part of it is you. A big part of it is you in helping me understand that. So I'm sure you have a lot of firsthand knowledge about cultural misunderstandings and misrepresentations. So I want to know, what are some of the biggest ones you've come across that even you, when you were traveling, like on the flight to this country, you had this idea, and then you get there and you found out like, whoa, I was wrong.
Yeah. Well, I remember I have to think back. I mean, there's sometimes I remember the first time I went to Paris, I was expecting everyone to be like rude and
yes,
you know, because the French are so rude. The French are and I went there and I'm like, I was there with a girlfriend at the time, and I'm like, these people are so nice. I'm like, this isn't what I was like that, and I was probably like 18 or 19 at the time, and that really opened my eyes. I'm like, wait, they're nothing like those stereotypes we hear about how rude the French are. Like, they're freaking amazing, you know. And there's that kind of thing that just changed it. But then there's sometimes the funny things, like the countries where like this is yes and this is no, and you know, like in Greece, you do this, it's like that's bad. That's like, you know, not the middle finger, but it's something like that. And I'm like, wave. They're like, no, if you wave, just wave. Don't like wave like this, because it gets taken the wrong way. Or I did a poll about doing. I was like, hey, do you want me to do a Don'ts of Athens video this Saturday? And it was a poll. So the first one was yes, and the second one was nah. And nah, you think nah means no, but no, nah is yes in Greece. So they were both yes, and so people were like, wait a minute. I'm like, yeah. If you don't know, you're like, don't go that way. Or there's other things, you know, like we were in Rwanda, and my wife was waving like this to the kids, but this means come here.
Okay.
It's not because she's like, oh, wave like the don't wave like this, because that means come on over. So
yeah, that's similar to Japan, because I work for a Japanese country, and come here is that. If you do this, it's weird, but it's like that. Well, so I feel like I might put you on the spot here. So you don't have to answer the question, but I would love it if you did. You obviously have plenty of friends from around the world. But I want to know, if you can, and I really want you to attempt to name a number one favorite country. Above all others, your favorite one.
I think when I usually do this, it comes down to probably three places. Going back to Brazil, going to Italy, or going to France. Like, those three go together. If I had to take out my like family and friends kind of side, like just a place I like going, I think France probably comes in number one.
Really?
But since I have so many friends in Italy and Brazil, that it's like, because this is one of the things is now when I travel to go see my friends.
Right.
You know, it's like, I mean, it's like, I know when we can travel again, I'm going to hit up Barcelona to see my buddy Magnus. I'm going to Lithuania to see Alvi. I'm going to Italy to see Nando. I'm going to England to see Dave. I'm going down to Brazil to see Giro and Berta. You know, I'm like, those are already set. I'm like, I'm going, you know, because I'm like, I want to go see them again, you know, and it's funny because when I was younger, I traveled, it was like, where haven't I gone? You know, it's like, I want to get to new places. But now, you know, I've gotten older. It's like, I still love seeing new places, but I'm like, dude, I haven't seen Nando for 2 years. You know, I haven't seen my buddy, you know, Alvi for, like, my buddy Alvi and I, we would always kind of, he lives in Lithuania and I used to live there. We literally had dinner together 5 nights a week when I lived there. Like, we were two single dudes and you know, like, you want to get dinner? Sure, dude, let's go. Like, and so and so he and I, you know, 2014, I was teaching in Belgium. 2015, I went to Lithuania to see him. So we were making it a point to see each other. And now we haven't had that for a while because last year got canceled because of everything. And so like for me, it's where I can see my people is where I really want to go.
Right.
But if I take the people out, I probably had the most fun in France and Italy, just because the food, the sights, the kind of like atmosphere there. I mean, Germany's always been close to my heart. I went to school, then I lived there. But that's again goes into the people because I speak German, so I get to meet the people. So, but like as a standalone, I think that's the winner as of today.
As of today, yeah. For me, it'll probably always be Scotland again, because for me, family, and that's where my people came from. If I had to take that away, and this is going off of just what I know from people I've spoken to, for me, it's going to be India. Just because and I will say Brazil's a close second, definitely a close second, because I did an episode with an individual from Brazil who makes his own pizza. And like, I don't know if I got pizza shirt. One of the reasons I picked this from Adidia is it's got a pizza in it.
Yeah.
And because he lives in Sao Paulo. And one of the things I loved about that episode is they have like 6,000 plus pizzerias. And I was like, I gotta go.
Did you tell you about the requeijão they put on the, like, there's like the chocolate pizza. It's made of milk. They talk about requeijão. It's like this, it's related to like a liquidy cream cheese.
Okay. I think he did speak about that, because my guy down there is Eduardo, and he loves cheese. He makes his own cheese. He's trying to make a subscription business to, like, you know, buy and sell cheese like that. And oh man, when he posts pictures of his cheese, I'm just like salivating at the mouth. I'm like, can you ship that to the States for me? I would love to try that. Yeah. But it would probably be India again, just strictly the architecture. Like, I would love to just like bask in the intricate details of all those temples. They have, you know, a whole bunch of statues, and that's just, even when I'm thinking of it now, I'm just in awe, because I can picture certain images I've recalled from talking to these individuals. So that's Scotland. Take away family, and it's probably India, and definitely Brazil, close second, 100%.
Cool. Very cool.
I've enjoyed this. Again, you've been a great inspiration and help to everything that I've come to know and love about traveling and culture and everything like that. So for the 5th time, probably not the last, as I'll say it again, I'm sure, before we officially end this, thank you again for everything, for Wolters World. Thank Jocelyn next time you talk to her, for her love of food. And she has a love of history and ancient history, which is a big love of mine as well. So definitely shout out to Simply Jocelyn. Everybody got to watch that as well. Get her ball rolling. But Mark, is there anything you would like to say? You have the floor is yours right now.
No, just if you want to learn more about honest travel and where to go around the world, just check us out at woltersworld.com, or just go on YouTube and look up Wolters World, WOLTERS World, and you'll see a guy with a bald head and ponytail who's a little bit on the porky side, who will gladly give you the most honest travel advice possible.
Yeah, and I want to ask before we go, has anyone ever said that you sort of look like Andrew Zimmern?
I have had that one once. I usually get more Mario Batali.
Yeah, because you do have more hair than or Andrew doesn't have hair at all. So yeah, I can see the more Mario. Yeah. Well, again,
actually, I dressed up like Mario Batali like 5 or 6 years ago, for Halloween one year.
Oh yeah,
because they're like, and that is funny. When we would go down to Savannah, and when I go down there, people would stop because Paula Deen was down there, and so it was down there. So like, this is probably like 2014, 15, something like that. There's like 2 or 3 people that came up to me and they thought I was him because they'd gone to like Paula Deen's restaurant, and they're like, oh, the cooking channel or the Food Network, whatever. He was on there too, and they're like, they do this. They look at me, and then they look down. And
look for the Crocs.
And they're like, oh, I knew you weren't him once I saw you didn't have the Crocs on. I'm like,
oh yeah, that's the giveaway right there. You got to have the Crocs on. Well, again, Mark, thank you very much. Everyone, check out Wolters World, simply Jocelyn as well. And whenever we're able to fly and travel, definitely get onto them and get an idea about where you're going. Like you said, it's honest travel information. It's helped me a lot. I'm sure he's helped plenty of other people as well. So yeah, Mark, once again, thank you very much. And you take care of yourself, sir.
Thanks, Rad. You have a good one, buddy.
All right, you too. Bye, everybody.